Metroid Prime 4 finally came out just a few weeks ago. So in celebration of the release of this fantastic new game, I want to take the time to introduce you to the most underrated Metroid Prime game, Metroid Prime Hunters. Released for the Nintendo DS back in 2006, Metroid Prime Hunters was originally designed to show off what the Nintendo DS could do. Touch controls, online multiplayer, and a totally different take on the Metroid Prime formula. It wasn't just a side game, it was Nintendo's big attempt to bring Metroid into a somewhat competitive, fast-paced, arena-style combat while still keeping the iconic isolation and world building the series is known for. But this time, I'm not diving into this game alone.
Hey, it's NintenCisco here! Hey everyone, Cisco here. I'm a lifelong Nintendo and Metroid fan. I played Metroid Prime Hunters when I was a teenager, and it's been over a decade, I believe. Yeah, way over a decade since I played it. So DAGG proposed the idea of replaying this game. Well, replaying for me, it's his first playthrough, but to replay it before Metroid Prime 4 comes out, and I'm glad we did. There is a lot to discuss about this game, so let's jump right into it. To start off, the story begins with a telepathic message that Samus gets talking about a great source of power. The signal came from a desolate system known as the Alimbic Cluster. The problem here is that 6 other hunters also received this message and are gunning to this ultimate treasure, this ultimate power, and Samus needs to intercept them before things get bad. In order for Samus to uncover this power, however, you gotta find 8 different Octoliths. So we're gonna be going through different worlds and solving puzzles and fighting our way through the other hunters to uncover this. But there's also, on these planets, there's also ancient civilizations, there's guardians that want to fight against you. So there is just danger at every turn.
Fun fact, this game is also a multiplayer, but more on that later. So without further ado, let's talk about this game's story. Samus receives a telepathic distress signal from the Alimbic Cluster. This signal promises ultimate power, so our mission is to find this ultimate power. However, we are not alone in this search, as other bounty hunters are also on the hunt for this power, including Psylocke, who you may recognize from Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. But more on him later. We first arrive to the Celestial Archives, where we start exploring this space station and we face our first rival bounty hunter, Camden, who can turn into a slug, but it is not a hard battle, like, at all. We continue exploring the Celestial Archives until we find Cretapid, one of the first non-bounty hunter bosses. We fight it by attacking the blue dots on its body as we avoid the laser attacks. Once all the blue dots are gone, we can shoot its real body on the top. It is actually pretty fun and impressive for a Nintendo DS game. And that's how we get our first Octolith. We actually need to collect 8 Octoliths in order to be able to find this ultimate power. However, after we grabbed it and on our way back, we get an emergency evacuation message from our ship. So with the timer on our ass, we make our way back to the ship, but not with some fight in the way. We do manage to survive and get away from the Celestial Archives. For a Nintendo DS title, Metroid Prime Hunters was absolutely wild when it came to graphics. Most DS games leaned heavily on sprites or simple 3D models, but Metroid Prime Hunters pushed the system closer to what people expected from a handheld Metroid Prime experience. It delivered full 3D environments, surprisingly detailed enemy models, and fast-moving first-person gameplay running at a consistent frame rate, even during hectic battles. The textures were obviously lower resolution compared to the GameCube games, but the art direction did most of the heavy lifting. The planets, corridors, and alien structures still feel like Metroid, and the game's lighting tricks gave areas a sense of depth and atmosphere that the DS had no right of pulling off all the way back in 2006. Where things get really interesting is in the cutscenes, especially when you move from planet to planet or when you face a boss. Unlike some simpler handheld games, Hunters uses pre-rendered cinematics, and it doesn't just display them on one screen. Some of these cutscenes cleverly split across both DS displays. One screen shows one point of view while the other gives you a different angle or complementary action, making use of the dual screen setup to enhance storytelling. This decision was so clever and it blew my mind. Of course, the downside is that these pre-rendered videos don't look super clean on the actual DS hardware. Since the system screens are so low res, the footage ends up looking pretty rough and grainy, We're talking around 144p to 240p once it's compressed for the cartridge. You can see the blockiness and heavy compressions in a lot of the scenes, especially when there's movement and special effects. But this doesn't take away the amazing feat it was to put these pre-rendered cutscenes on the Nintendo DS.
Talking about the gameplay, it's kind of rough to be honest. Here is your DS. I have the game already on. Let me lower that volume. Where is the volume button on this one? So you use the circle pad to move around, you use the L button to shoot, and then you use your stylus to aim. This game gives you horrible cramps, and I had it easy because, let me show you the difference in styluses here. This is what you're supposed to play with. This is what I played with. Much easier. If you're able to have a Apple Pencil or a stick outside with a rubber end that you can attach to it, I would say that is the way to play it. You can double tap your screen to jump, but everything that you need is on that screen. So if you want to change your shot type, if you want to go into morph ball mode, if you want to fling if you want to go faster with the morph ball and use the speed boost, you would use your stylus to move it. The screen is tiny though, and very often, more often than not, in the middle of combat, I'm always accidentally changing my shot type or going into morph ball, or I'm running out of screen space to turn around, and I have to like swipe again. And so in the middle of combat and things are stressful and there's high stakes, you can get kind of lost in the controls. And then again, it does not help that your hand cramps because you have to move with the circle pad and shoot with your index finger. And when you're doing that a lot, and this game is very heavily reliant on you shooting a bunch, it does cramp up your hand pretty badly. I mentioned there are 6 hunters. Well, each hunter has their own weapon, and those are shot types that we will also achieve throughout the game. Starting off, we have the battle hammer, which is a hard-hitting attack but has a short travel distance. So you're gonna have to really lob it high up in the air if you want to aim farther. This weapon is also very effective against electric types. The other one is the Adjudicator. This one is an ice type shot, which bounces around and can hit enemies multiple times. But you're also able to charge the shot and throw 3 at once. Next is the Volt Driver. Not very significant, it's like an electric shot type, but what I love about this one is it shoots really far and very quickly. So I use this one a lot if I want more accuracy. If I want to do a lot of damage very quickly and rely on quantity of shots rather than quality, I guess is the way of putting it. Shot Coil. This is the favorite. This is Silox's weapon. All you have to do is hold down L and it will track enemies. It's like a taser that shoots out and it just shocks everything in front of you. It's a very good weapon, and it's especially strong against boss fights. Now, enemies, when they're trying to dip and dodge and run around, it's easier to track them and hit for massive damage. It absolutely sucks getting hit by this, by Silox himself, but when you have the weapon, it is awesome. Close to the end, we have Magmal. Did I say that right? Magmal is what you would expect. You shoot a nice old lava shot. This one's great for melting ice-like enemies, and also it doesn't travel very far, so kind of similar, you gotta lob it. Next up is another favorite, the Imperialist. This is Trace's weapon. This is a sniper rifle. So essentially, you can do some devastating damage, but if you want to zoom in, you can change the shot type and zoom in like a sniper, and you can do absolutely devastating damage if you do a headshot. Or if you hit an enemy in its weak point, you can one-shot enemies. This weapon will be crucial later in the final boss fight because of how powerful it is, that you're able to get through phases quicker, taking out the final boss, but more on that later.
Now let's continue the story. We now arrive to Alinos, a fire-based planet where we continue exploring until we have our boss fight against a bounty hunter Spire, who actually has rock powers. He is pretty annoying but not a big deal. Then we head into literally the next room and we have another boss fight against Slench, which is using these worm-like creatures to power its defense, so we take those out and that's when we can attack the normal body. We defeat it and get another Octolith. And like last time, we get the emergency evacuation message and we have a timer to head back into our ship. Not before a challenging battle, but we do make it back to the ship.
At this point, you get how the story and the gameplay loop is going, right? Invesper Defense in the Invesper Defense Outpost. I totally am not looking at my screen saying that. In this one, we get to fight Silox, and he's of course using his shot coil to shock you, and it's really annoying. But the fights with Psylocke is pretty fun, except for the part where he tries running away. I see you, Psylocke, trying to run away. After we finish this world, we're gonna go on to Arcterra, which I couldn't stand this location, mostly because it is an Arctic area, and there's ice everywhere where you slip and slide, and I hate any kind of game that platforms where you're slipping and sliding everywhere, especially a first person. So this place was kind of annoying, but you do get the Imperialist weapon here, which is really cool. We are able to take out the Slench. The Slench fights are getting tougher and tougher with each new world we're going through. And at the end, when you're trying to escape, you get Trace on your booty, on your tail, trying to take you out. And it is so annoying because Trace is a coward. He phases in and out using cloaking devices, I guess. And you have to look for him and attack him. That was a super annoying fight.
We finally defeat all bounty hunters. And now, at this point of the game, we continue exploring these 4 planets and stations, getting new abilities and fighting the same bosses over and over again, just with harder variants. There are also occasional spawns that replace the bounty hunters, like the fire spawn and the Arctic spawn. These are fun battles, if I'm being completely honest. And finally, we get all 8 Octoliths. So we head back into Alinos and activate the secret cannon with the 8 Octoliths. This cannon launches a powerful energy blast that reveals the Jubilant, a massive alien prison ship built by the ancient Alimbic civilization to contain a dangerous entity, Gorea. So now it is time for the final boss, our battle against Gorea. And to be honest, I had no idea what I was looking at. Lore-wise, it's basically an ancient, unstoppable bioweapon created by the Alimbics. They built Gorea to be the ultimate weapon, and then immediately realized, yeah, this was a terrible idea. So instead of destroying it, they sealed it away because they literally couldn't kill it.
So now we're at the final boss fight with Gorea. And this boss is a doozy. It's a tough one. What essentially happened was this treasure, this ultimate power, was a trap. And all the strongest fighters that made it to the end are now captured. Now with Gorea having all of their shot types, Gorea is going to change its mask multiple times. It will go in and out of different shot types, meaning it will now become weak or resistant to the different shot types that you have. In order to get through this boss fight, what you have to do is memorize what are the weaknesses and strengths of each shot type and match them accordingly. But here's a trainer tip for you. You're actually able to use the Imperialist to one-shot one of the parts of Gorea so that you can get through this space quicker. And of course, Gorea, as cheap as this boss fight is, it regenerates. So if you are not destroying the parts faster, they will regenerate and you will have to start over, which is really annoying. This is where the Imperialist really shines through because you can take out a part of Gorea in one shot and immediately follow up with the next attack.
Also, you have to shoot these colored circles on the walls with the correct shot types in a specific order to be able to access the second phase. And how do you know the correct order? Look it up on Google. Literally, look it up on Google, that's how I did it. It's the only way. After you deal enough damage, Gorea enters its second phase, and this is where it goes full nightmare feel. The faces disappear, the arena changes, and Gorea starts flying around like a demonic space god. At this point, you're no longer matching weapons to faces. Instead, you need to focus on constant movement and charge shots.
The final power-up that you get, the final shot type, is the Omega Cannon, which you will receive later on, story-based at the final fight. Once you finish enough phases of the final boss, Gorea will enter its final phase where it is able to go in and out of reality. I know, what kind of game is this? And you're able to use the Omega Cannon to just no BS, no getting away, bah, 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 bah. You take this Omega Cannon, you shoot the boss in the face, oh, I'm gonna go out of reality. It does not matter because we have the Omega Cannon, and Samus is a badass and a legend, and it's not for no reason, blah!
In order to win, you need to never stop moving. Gorea's attacks hit hard, and standing still is basically asking to die. Second, use charge shots as much as possible. They do way more damage and help end the fight faster. And third, watch the attack patterns. Once you recognize them, Gorea becomes way less scary, still ugly, but less scary. And finally, after defeating Gorea's true form, the prison explodes and we get to see how Samus and the other hunters escape. We also get to see Zero Suit Samus for a brief moment and the game ends. Just like that. But wait, we haven't talked about the multiplayer.
This game was made to be a multiplayer first before a campaign, which might explain why some of those puzzles and the story is pretty linear compared to other Prime games. This game was ahead of its time. It really was. The multiplayer is awesome. You can choose any of the hunters and have your primary shot type, and you go into an arena and you shoot each other. You were able to do this through online play or local. And if you did locally, if one person had the copy, other people were able to play using DS downplay. You remember that? Good times. You're able to play as the hunters. You can play as Trace with the Imperialists. You can play as Psylocke with the shot coil. It would be really cool if we had this remastered and had a modern version of this to play.
So this is Metroid Prime Hunters. Honestly, a pretty impressive game for its time, and a game that I was so happy to complete. It can be repetitive and it is not as open-worldly as the other Metroid Prime games. But as the first handheld Metroid 3D game, it is really impressive, and a game that I actually do recommend if you are a Metroid fan. Especially if you want to know more about Psylocke, you first fight him in this game, which is super cool. And this is also one of the easiest Metroid games, except for the final boss, but yeah, it is fun. It is fun, I had a lot of fun. NintenCisco, what do you think?
My opinion of this game is that it's definitely not my favorite, but I love what they were trying to do. It was very ambitious at the time, especially for a DS game, to have a multiplayer that you can do online and locally. Some kind of like a, Call of Duty type game where you're able to go in and shoot each other, and Nintendo didn't really have games like that. So to have Metroid of all titles have that and get overlooked really sucks. But I think this game was pretty solid for its time, very ambitious. Not my favorite. I think the game was very tedious. I hated the ice level. The boss fight, I don't even know how you're supposed to do that without writing stuff down or looking things online. That was a tough boss fight, but overall, cool game, and we got a lot of great characters like Psylocke, who is now currently in Metroid Prime 4, though I do wish to see some other characters like Trace show up in future games. So here's hoping that we'll see more of the hunters come back later in the Metroid Prime series.
Before we end, did you know that Nintendo also released Metroid Prime Hunters First Hunt? But this is for another video. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Thank you NintenCisco for participating. My name is DAGG, and I'll catch you next time.
You can catch me on NintenCisco, the YouTube channel, and see if you like more Metroid videos. I cover a decent amount of Metroid and Pikmin. Thank you for watching. And DAGG, thank you for having me.
Do not forget to leave a like and subscribe, and also follow my buddy NintenCisco in the description down below. See ya, bye!